Hi there, I'm Robert Perry. I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives for District 2, Kentucky. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Jacob Clark, who is running for Kentucky's House seat for Grayson and Hardin County, which is District 18. So I also try to emphasize to everybody during all of these shows what you can do to help our candidates, whether it be me or whatever candidate is guest for the evening, or one of the several candidates on my candidates page. But something I'm also trying to get in the habit of doing, so remind me when I fail, is I'm trying to remind you that you can also help by simply liking, commenting, and sharing. Just, playing the algorithm a little, get people to come interact with the show. So I've run into a snag, which is Jacob hasn't quite joined yet. He was on the road, and he told me he was almost ready a couple of minutes ago. Do a little song, do a little dance. All right, so I do have a bit of a plan B, is we will just start perusing his website. This is what we're going to be talking to him about anyway. And you can see at the top, you have contacts. Maybe you can click there and get in contact with Jacob, invite him to your show. And we have a donate button, which takes you to Anodot. I've already scoped it out. Anodot's a safe, secure place to join. And, I'll kill about 3 more minutes waiting on Jacob, but a lot of Kentuckians pander to being adamant about the Second Amendment. Jacob is absolutely adamant about the Second Amendment. We've had lengthy discussions about it. He's always going to rallies in Frankfort concerning that. Another thing he's adamant about, and I'm quite happy to point this one out, is Jacob is pro-life and pro-prevention. And I know I lose some votes for this from the the pro-life libertarians. Probably the best I can describe me is if you absolutely know without a doubt which way it should be, you're probably the person I disagree with. My perspective is this is a debate that's been going on for over 2,000 years. It goes all the way back to the time of Hippocrates. It was included in the discussion of inside the original Hippocratic Oath. And so I see both sides of it. And I think a lot of libertarians see both sides of it. And that's something I really loved talking with Jacob, is even though Jacob has really strong feelings on pro-life, he also is looking for really practical ways to work with people who disagree with him. I even saw him on Take Back Kentucky explain to people that, yes, he's extremely pro-life, but he's been talking to these people, meaning those who disagree with him, for many, many years, and you're just not going to change their mind. And even though I'm not exactly on the opposite end of the spectrum from Jacob, he's right. He's not going to change my mind. But Jacob's very interested in avoiding unexpected pregnancies. And he's something that really caught my eye, and he's with us now, he's stuck backstage, is he talks about having discrete 24 access to affordable contraception. And that one resonated with me. And I told Jacob this story, is back in high school, I actually kept a outside pen with about 3 condoms in it, because in high school, a lot of high schoolers don't know where. Well, I guess they know where, but they're bashful. They're not going to go buy these things, and that's where Jacob's absolutely right. I mean, not only does it have to be discreet because you don't exactly want to advertise it, but quite frankly, a lot of teens, you'd think they'd be boastful and proud, but when it gets right down to it, a lot of teens get a little shy about that. And I know because in high school, I was the guy they would sometimes buy them off of, and you know, I may not have, but I kind of feel like over the years I perhaps helped prevent a pregnancy or two. And I think Jacob's plan there is absolutely spot on. Hey, Jacob, I don't know if I've ever told you, but I tend to be a like right on time kind of guy. So I sort of started without you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
And that shower really paid off. You're looking sharp, man. Get stuck on the road a little longer than you meant to?
Yeah, I'm a working man, so what can I say?
Well, I mean that goes back with the whoopsie. I switched the wrong slide. That goes back with on your website you said I am one of you at the
Right.
top, and then at the bottom you said I am you. I may have got the order different, but I always like doing the two different fonts trick anyway, so I switched between the two. So mine says it both for you there. But yeah. So I was actually looking through your site earlier, and by the way, for people who don't know, that is clark4ky.com.
Right.
So that's the site I've been showing people. But we were going to talk through some of your platform tonight, and since I already have it up, you want to just use your website as kind of an outline, or you just want to go with whatever moves you?
Give me just a second here. Put it on do not disturb. Okay. All right. So yeah, I grew up here. This is my hometown, and I remember what it was like. When I was a kid. Um, and things have happened since then that have really taken a toll on my community, and I believe probably a lot of communities across our nation. So that's different. So yeah,
Sorry, didn't mean to
that's
distract you.
okay.
I just figured we weren't talking to the side. I'd let them see you a little better, man.
All right. So
Now that we see you better, I'm going to go back to the way it was. There we go. No, I'm kidding.
I'm okay with that. I was reading off to go over in the right order, but that's okay. So that part on my website, it says rebuilding together.
Right.
And it mentions some issues in our community that are near and dear to my heart, and everyone that I've talked to. Jobs. We need some jobs. We need people to work those jobs with skills. Today a lot of the focus is on you got to go to college when you get out of high school. Well, I don't necessarily believe that every American citizen needs to go to college. Yeah, there's lots of professions where that's useful, but there are a lot of professions where college just adds an expense and puts a person in a lot of debt. So at first point under rebuilding together, and we're looking to rebuild what we once had. Basically, is what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Well, let's not use the website as too much of a crutch. I mean, but I mean, on the topic of technical training and apprenticeship, I mean, one
Yeah.
of the things I noted in there is, and you had this somewhere else on the page. You were talking about people volunteering time to train youth, and that resonates to me twice. Number one, I've talked to you enough to know you've volunteered for hospice. You've volunteered for drug programs inside of prisons.
Right.
So I mean, there's people who say charity will take care of it. They actually mean you. You are that person.
our community is filled with those people, and more people would do that stuff. What
Right.
happens? What happens is there, say there's some tragedy, somebody's house burns down, your neighbor's house burns down. You would help them. A lot of folks around here, we would be ready to help them. But when we go reaching into our pockets to see what we can pull out to help them, we realize the government's already been in there and taken what extra we might have had.
Right.
And there's a lot of things, when I was looking into running, there was a lot of things financially that just really blew me away that were going on. And, um, you know, they scream and holler about not having enough money. So they want to raise taxes. This year, they wanted to raise Kentucky state sales tax from 6% to 8%. They introduced a bill for that. They did raise taxes on some tobacco products and some vaping products. There was a bill put forth for more taxes brought into counties, cities, and municipalities, and my opponent voted for that, for more taxes.
Right.
And so they scream and holler, well, we need this money. We're doing things, the roads, that's one thing people always throw at you. We're doing the basics that we have to have, we can't live without, right? Then you
That's what
go
they say.
looking, yeah, then you go looking at what they're spending it on, and you look at like HB 99 is a corporate bailout. It bailed out U of L, and this was pre-corona. This has
Right.
nothing to do with research for corona. I've already got that excuse. This was pre-corona. They voted. My opponent voted yes to a bill that gives $35 million away to U of L,
Right.
and it's the whole too big to fail kind of thing. And if you or I are sinking financially, we sink. There's not a government bailout that the legislators are going to vote on for us. So my opponent has voted for more taxes to pay for bailouts in the tens of millions of dollars, and they're screaming and yelling at us that our yearly pensions are $83 million underfunded. Well, no wonder, um, the money's being wasted. So that's one thing I was just flabbergasted by as I was considering a run for this office. And now I realize, it'd be very important to my community and voters for me to get in there and say no to this stuff, say no to all
You,
this waste.
everybody's so eager to say, no to taxes. They don't want to um, pay taxes, but then they're always after the pork. And I mean, that's the thing is my first complaint with government is I get angry about what they're spending the taxes on.
Right.
But because I have passions, I have things I want to invest in. I mean, I don't even mean financially. When I moved into the community I'm currently in, I had a school teacher just down the street from me, and I started talking to him about having like a little after school programming class, software engineering class. I thought that would be fun. And he's like, well, first of all, you can't call it a class. I'm like, why not? He's like, well, if you call it a class, the state's going to be all up in your face about, curriculum and what you can teach and who, just all these other details. I'm like, okay, so how do I fix that? He goes, well, you call it a club. I'm like, okay, fine. It's an after school club, no problem. But then I started contacting teachers to see if they were interested in me teaching this, and there's just no interest.
Right.
And I mean, I'm self-taught. If you want the career I have, no, I have some college too. I was a double major in electrical engineering and physics, which doesn't teach you all that much about software engineering, a bit, but not all that much. But if you want a career like mine, you to this day can go build it. You know,
Right.
go get on GitHub, find a project you're passionate about, and start learning. But it'll help you if somebody in your community can spare a little time and help. Meanwhile, Joe Hunter says electrical engineers represent. Yeah, that's right. Ohm's law, but we won't repeal that one. But you know, I have those passions, and I look at my community, and I think I can help people who can help me build my business. We could help me build my community. We could do a lot of things for other places. You know, I do work for a lot of big banks. I could help people be prepared for that. You likewise could train people to work on machine parts. You're successful at that. And instead of our money getting to go where we want it to go, it's going to a U of L bailout. And Randall wants to know, how does that represent Grayson County? You know, what's Grayson County?
I want to know that also. You know, U of L charges a tuition. They have their own infrastructure to bring in revenue. So why are we, you know, show me in the Constitution where it says that we are supposed to bail out corporations that are too big to fail. You won't find it in there. So, but what you're talking about with apprenticeships, you know, maybe it's a little different. My idea is a little different than what folks traditionally think of. You know, we've got a decent vocational school attached to our high school right now. They've got a machine shop, auto mechanics, wood shop, some different things like that, and that's great. But what I have seen, and I have actually worked in factories in the community, you know, in different positions, and what I have seen is, you know, sometimes youth doesn't really take that seriously, or whatever, and they get out in the world and they work a few years and they realize, man, I really should have got a skill, right?
Right.
So, you know, what I'm looking at is not really tied to youth exactly, but you know, you take somebody who is in their 30s or maybe their 40s, and they decide I want a skill. Well, I can name half a dozen folks off the top of my head that live right here in the county who are excellent tradesmen, you know, very experienced in what they do, and would be more than happy to help others learn such a trade and maybe even end up employing them. You know, jobs is a big deal to a lot of people in this community. And you know, I've been going around to some of the successful businesses that we've got and saying, hey, you know, what can we do to help you expand? And you know, of course, first thing everybody thinks is, well, you're going to give them money. Heck no, I don't believe in that, but I do believe in cutting taxes. So, you know, what can we do? What kind of government licensing costs, taxes, you know, what can we move out of the way that will help you expand, or maybe you're getting started, that will help you take off, you know? So
well, I'm never a fan of removing a tax for a specific company, though. I like to remove it for everybody.
Definitely. So whatever would be advantageous for one company would surely be advantageous for another company.
That's right.
So how does one in the government, how do they find out what is it that we can do? You go pound the pavement and you ask them about it. And it just so happens that a lot of these I've already worked with, you know, on some things or another. So
you did surprise me, though. I was kind of expecting you to tell me they were looking for talent, because I get a lot of that.
Looking for talent.
Yeah, in terms of them growing.
Right. Yeah. Some of them are. I mean, you got to understand, like, a lot of the jobs are, you know, skilled, low skilled, or maybe, you know, moderately skilled, not really high skilled. you know, and so just take welding, for example. There's a few places in Grayson County where you can get a job as a welder if you can weld. Of course, now I got, you know, a bunch of guys out there going, well, I can weld, you know, but I'm talking about like AWS certified welding. So you take a guy, he's already out of high school, he can't afford college, but he would like to get some level of certification. AWS is American Welding Society. He would like to get some level of certification with that organization, and it would give him a few score points on his resume when he applies for a job. And so I would like to have a place where these folks that, you know, are close to middle aged even could go and you know, maybe it costs them a few bucks a night for a month or two, but they get some skills. It pays our volunteers some. It keeps the lights on in the facility, and it perpetuates without government. Isn't that great? Here's the thing: if we wanted to do it with government, it would take 10 years to implement.
Right.
It would cost 10 times as much, and it would be so distorted and diluted, it wouldn't be worth it in the end. We can do these.
And even if you missed your mark somehow and for some reason it didn't work, you'd still have it forever and you'd never get rid of it and you'd always be paying for it.
Yeah. You know, so anything worth having, people will pay for it voluntarily.
Right.
You don't have to coerce them. But anyway, that's
no. Does that tie to apprenticeships though?
That's what I'm talking about. You know, after you can get skills different ways. You know, you can take these classes. Maybe you'll gain an apprenticeship and get more skills, advance your existing skills. But you know, there's different ways to level up, maybe.
Right. I want to talk about this in property tax for elderly. This sounds, I don't know if you got it off Toller or Toller got it off you, or you just both came up with it separately, but I heard James Toller talking about that on Larry Sharp's show a couple of weeks ago.
Well, it's a great idea. And I know me and Toller talked about it maybe back in January. And I came up with the idea, but he may have also came up with the idea. You know?
Right. That happens.
I mean, I'm okay with that. It's because it is common sense. And that goes back to me saying, you know, we need to stop electing politicians. You know, you start talking about doing away with taxes. That's not something you hear a politician say, you know, at least not for the last 40 years. Anyway, the property tax thing. So imagine you have this person and they have worked their entire life. They may be a veteran, you know, and they've paid off their property. Now they go into retirement. They're on a fixed income. And so they're, you know, if something happens, there's a financial hardship, you know, something like that. I mean, I've seen this, and they can't pay the property taxes. You know, here in America, it's kind of an illusion to think that we actually own our property because of property taxes. But in reality, this person could end up losing their home for just a few $100, few $1,000, whatever's owed in property tax. So I would want to end property taxes. Now, there's already, like, if you can jump through all the hoops, which a lot of elderly folks can't, and they would just give up, and that's what government wants you to do lots of times. But if you can jump through all the hoops, there's a way to get out of like 70% of your property taxes, you know, but they still hold on to that 30% so they can take your property if needed. But I would want to eliminate them for our elderly and retired fixed income folks. Just eliminate them altogether, at least on their primary residence. And so, you know, then somebody will say, well, that's how we pay our sheriff and our schools and things like that. But I think that it's definitely worth the trade-off. I'm seeing a question on here. I think it's definitely worth the trade-off to ensure that our folks who have worked hard, put in the time. Like I said, a lot of these people are veterans who
Uh-huh.
have represented and defended our country, and it's definitely worth that loss of that little bit of revenue to make sure that those folks don't lose their home. You know, what's more American than that? So, you know, and to offset those taxes being cut, I say let's stop giving away corporate bailouts. How about that?
I want to have a little fun with Jimothy's
Yeah,
question, though. Uh, so, if government is the answer, what the heck is the question?
right.
I think how can we waste more money?
Yeah, how can we extort poor, pitiful old ladies?
How can we seed discord between our citizens?
Yeah, that's part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can we take away liberties in the name of security,
Hmm.
safety?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
What can we use as an excuse to make people hate each other and
this
sow
is
fear?
a weird Jeopardy right now.
I don't know. I don't know. Did we come close? Did we come
Extort the other
close?
day for 500, Alex.
And Randall had a suggestion on some of those bureaucrats you were talking about. He suggests we eliminate them. I
Yes.
like it.
Yeah. There a lot of
Ah, Joe.
expenses.
Joe
A
found
lot
it.
of the
Joe says how to control the population is the question.
yikes.
There we go.
Yeah, a lot of the expenses of these government programs are bureaucrats and administration.
Mm.
And, you know, we can eliminate that, but
Could
um
could we talk about your drug outreach? Because that's something I know you're really uh, passionate about because you spend your time on it personally.
right. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. Anybody watching right now that is in this district and probably in any place in America, really, we can agree that we have a serious, you know, we talk about this pandemic of this virus. We have a serious pandemic of drug addiction in our communities. And, you know, it is such a complex and layered issue. Um, and government has thrown this very rudimentary uh, solution at it for 40 something years that just has not worked. You
Right.
know, I've known people that were good people, good hearted people, and opioids specifically take them over and they become something totally different. And
Right.
I don't want to get preachy right now on it, but it does possess them. You know, it gets a hold of them. They do things they're not proud of, so then they use to forget the things that they did that they weren't proud of, and then they do more things they're not proud of, and it's a vicious cycle. And so, you know, government said, um, let's just sack these people up, put them in a cage, and that'll fix the problem.
That'll fix it.
And it's Rob, it's sad. It's sad. You know, it destroys lives on many different levels.
Right.
Um,
And something a lot of people don't realize. I mean, we realize it here, but if you have friends in urban areas and you start talking to them about the war on drugs, they don't understand that rural areas also have trouble with drugs, and we also have drug addictions, and we also have trouble with the war on drugs. It's not specifically an urban issue at all.
right. And just for a second, I'm going to say, anybody out there that would like to talk about this issue, hit me up. Hit me up privately, and you know, I I have worked with folks with these issues and been able to help a few. So I would gladly do that. But as far as government is concerned, we put them in a cage and we call that help. Now, what that does, that temporarily helps the folks outside of the cage. Okay. What really got me in the training to be able to go into jails, you have to take a special training. It's called PREA, and I would just prefer not to say what that means, what that stands for, but you can look it up. Anyway,
Okay.
uh, what we learned in the training is 95% of people who are in jail for something just related to addiction, well, 95% of people who are in jail right now, local jail or detention center, they're getting out eventually. Now, these people are going to be standing in line at the checkout in the grocery store with your family, friends, So don't we want these people to get actual help? Of course we do. We want to, my community claims to be religious. I challenge them to back that up with some action. Let's
Hmm.
actually deliver some help to these people. One of my closest friends, it kind of got me. He says, lock them up and throw away the key, and I just don't understand that. I'm glad that Christ isn't that way. He's forgiven and help you get through things. But anyway, so we as a community that claims to be Christian, I challenge you, volunteer, do a little something to help these
Right.
people. These are not terrible people. These are people who have made terrible decisions. And a lot of times they need your help. They want your help. They're crying out for your help. So, government doesn't have the time to work with each individual and find out what put them in this lane of life. Some of them have been, molested as a child. Some of them, um, I mean, there's just so many different things, different kinds of trauma that is
Hmm.
actually the gateway to these drugs. Folks want to say that marijuana is the gateway drug, and all of the people that I work with, all the addicts, they laugh at that and they say, no, alcohol might be a gateway drug. They say a lot of times the trauma and the issues that they're dealing with is the gateway, and this is the coping mechanism that they're using to deal with it at the time. So yeah,
Right.
these are our people. That is powerful statement. These are our people. These are people we love. These are people that at one point in time, maybe you held this person in your arms as a baby, and now we're saying lock him up and throw away the key. Sad, sad, sad. So yeah, I encourage people to volunteer and get out. One hashtag was take human action, and that's powerful. Government is don't have the time to devote to each individual to find out what they're dealing with. But I'm challenging the Christian folks, to work with them and deal with them. It's really easy to be a Christian inside that four walls and a roof with a steeple on it. But get out of your comfort zone and get to work on what you claim to be and what you're supposed to be doing. But
Right. I will caution about something, and Jacob, you shoot me down if you need to, because you're more experienced in this than I am, frankly. Um, but well, one part I know you won't. That cycle you were talking about earlier, when people would do things they weren't proud of, sometimes doing that thing is just doing the drug. They'll do the drug and they feel the shame, and to cope with the shame, they do the drug.
right,
Because shame's in the middle of that, I've always called that a shame cycle. I don't know if there's a proper name for it or not, but I've just called it the shame cycle. But people need to feel like they have a useful place in life, and to me, that sort of connects back to your apprentice program in a powerful way.
right.
Besides, in my mind, one of the most powerful things you can do to help a person cope with the shame cycle is to give them something they can be proud of. And
Absolutely.
by the way, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing religious folk, but be careful not to get on your high horse. You know, don't
Agree.
start looking down at these people, because if you look down
Right.
at these people, you're going to send them right back into the shame cycle, which isn't what you want.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of folks, they don't want to hear it from religious folks because,
Right.
you know, I would like someone to show me why um, marijuana is worse than alcohol, please. You
Right.
know, just because government has labeled it so doesn't mean it is so. So, we might have some religious folk that say, well, I drink a little bit just every now and then socially. I don't say that, but some might, and but at least I don't do what he does, and I would have them look up the let's see. I would have them look up in the Word of God where it talked about the Pharisee and I believe the publican. But anyway, he was comparing himself to another. We don't do that. If you're a Christian, if you're not, you might be saying, "Oh, he's driving me nuts with this Christian stuff," and I just bear with me through it because
Right.
I'm trying to light a fire into these so-called Christians. But if you're a Christian, you're not supposed to compare yourself to the worst person you know. Okay, that's not how this works. You're supposed to compare yourself to Jesus Christ. So anyway, if you're not a believer, then hey, I totally understand that. But if you're a believer claiming something, I'm saying today, pony up.
Yeah. Because I'm I get along with non-believers pretty well, but I often encourage them to read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and to focus on the red letters, the words Jesus said. Because to me, if you focus on what Jesus taught, there is profound wisdom there, and if you read it with an open mind, you can find that wisdom without even necessarily associating it with something divine or not. There's just profound wisdom there,
I love
and
that.
you don't
Absolutely.
absolutely have to be a Christian to find that wisdom.
Right.
um well, wow, we're 40 minutes in, but we do have, there's not that much more on your page. I think we can cover it. So where does the money go? We've already covered a lot of that. it,
One
it,
thing I
it
want to say about that is
yeah.
part of my campaign is accountability and transparency. I want to show our taxpayers where every nickel and dime is going. I want them to be able to just click, click, click on a website and see how much has went out of our community in taxes, how much is coming back in, how much is being wasted, what it's being spent on.
Right.
I want full transparency. I want to put it in the newspaper. So that's what I'll say about where does the money go.
So I think a lot of people would think that sounds like a lot of overhead, but if you're following a proper accounting practices, then you're already tracking all of that in a chart of accounts anyway. So really, all Jacob's talking about
Just
is
show it.
building graphs around the existing chart of accounts.
Right.
It's really not that huge of a deal.
If somebody wants to try to tell me that accountability is not worth the cost, and we have some serious problems.
Right. Right. Cannabis. This is a leftover prop from last night. This is
Okay.
this is hemp milk. I like hemp, but you're talking about cannabis, not quite the same thing. But yes,
Okay, I
Jimmy,
gotta talk about one thing about cannabis.
go for it.
Okay. We in my district, and I won't say her name, in my district, there is a little girl. Okay, this little girl is like 2 or 3 years old.
Right.
She was born with a condition. I'll tell her story everywhere I go and shame folks that won't listen. but she was born with a condition where she constantly has seizures. Okay. She has a trach put in. Young mother, um, and cannabis has been proven, okay, proven to be awesome treatment for this condition. And the children that have been treated with this, their seizures disappear. Okay. Now I'm trying to just really jerk the hearts out of all the dads and moms out there. And if you want to call this pandering, do it. I don't care. But this little girl needs medical cannabis access. All right. And if my little girl had this condition and cannabis would stop her constant seizures, I don't care what the law says, I would grow it or do whatever, find it, buy it, whatever, and I would treat my little daughter as I see fit. I feel like as a parent and as a Christian, if I do not, I am failing my own child. Okay.
Right.
So here's this little girl in my district having this issue. And then Amanda Billings is an awesome candidate running against Whitney Westerfield. I love it. I love it. It passed the House with 2/3 vote. HB 136, medical cannabis bill, passed the House with 2/3 vote. That's awesome.
Right.
Gets to the Senate, and Mr. Westerfield blocks this bill long enough, puts it off long enough, and kicks it down the road. And he says, we don't know enough about it. We have to look into it, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. There's 30 something states that have research on this and have already approved it, but he wants more information. So,
Right.
and this is a guy that claims to be pro-life. And so here's this little baby laying here suffering, with this condition that cannabis is proven to take care of. And
Right.
so I'm glad we have somebody running against the guy that blocked this. I'm interested to hear the thoughts from folks. I would like to introduce a bill that says that if the House passes something with 2/3 approval, that the Senate would have to consider it and vote it up or down. And what this is part of my accountability. Now, instead of being a coward and just being chicken and not putting forth a vote on this bill and having to answer to voters one way or the other, instead of avoiding that, now they have to vote it up or down. But I want to. If I don't get elected, but I will. I'm going to win. If I don't get elected, I at least want to scream and shout and jump up and down and holler about this little baby's condition and get medical marijuana to the folks in our state that need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Since you, and I did have Amanda on last night. I don't know if you saw that. Joe's pointing out that cannabis is an effective treatment for some military veterans with PTSD. Right. Without this,
22 veterans a day committing suicide. The doctor will give them a big bag of pills that makes them Fruit Loops, okay? But they can't have a plant that
scientific term
that you could grow next to your potatoes. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Right. Well, since you mentioned Amanda, because Amanda's in an important race, even though I had her on last night, her Facebook page is there in the comments, and you can eventually find where to donate to her in the comments. But there's how you can donate to her. But let's not forget this guy. This guy's pretty awesome too. The people in Grayson and Hardin County, is that right? You're also Hardin?
Grayson and West Hardin, District 18. And we need your help. We need your help.
Absolutely.
Get this stuff done. I absolutely despise asking folks for money and asking people for their money, but that is the game that has been built here, and it takes some money. So
Right.
please consider. I'm going to say, not going to say donate. I'm going to use the word invest. When you donate to me, you're making an investment in less taxes, simpler and cheaper and more honest government. You're making an investment in transparency and accountability.
Right. So you go to the clark4ky.com
Click on that
and
donate button.
click on the donate. And in case you're wondering why Jacob's being so intrusive and wanting to know this information, it's because KREF makes him be. He has to report that.
I would.
Otherwise,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
want your information. They do. Government does. Maybe I can change that too.
Well, it is there for transparency. It's so people can see
Sure.
who bought you, Jacob. I don't think anybody's
Right.
buying Jacob, but it is a transparency thing. So I'm a little more cool with that. And then finally, whoopsie, that's not where we want to go.
I'd like to go there. That looked beautiful.
That there is this guy.
Right.
You know, feel free to donate to this guy or just tune into his show. He does it
Right.
nightly. Do things like comment, share, like. You know, we need to get people like Jacob connected to other people who empathize with the mission. Tomorrow night, I don't actually have anyone scheduled. I think I'm going to do a solo act. I'll probably keep it somewhat short. I have a few topics in mind, but if you're excited about one you want me to cover, let me know. Jacob, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Let me tell everybody. Let me tell everybody. Yeah. Let me tell everybody we're going to be doing events. You know, all of us that are on these shows, we're going to be doing events together. You know, you can come talk to us. Everybody's got some little issue of why maybe they don't exactly understand the Libertarian Party. So, you know, we're going to be there in person at different events in different places. Keep watching Rob's page. Come talk to us. Get it figured out. You know, we just want to live free.
That's right. Thank you very much, Jacob. And I will see everyone tomorrow. Oh no, my mouse clicker's gone. Have a good evening.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Good night.